to Zenith Online Racing. This is EU tier round 8, I believe. Slightly out of order, the Chinese Grand Prix. We had to take a week off for, I believe it was the Indy 500, and so we canceled the Chinese Grand Prix and then are making it up now. So we've had some issues with the lobby, which was forcing us to start a little bit late today. Hopefully, I don't want to have the commentators curse and jinx us again as we're joining in, but hopefully everybody's able to join in. And this lobby is underway. So here we are. So yeah, like I said, we are revisiting the Chinese Grand Prix slightly out of order due to that week, but we build in the break weeks for these kind of things, so we are back. We got back to our usual numbers of 16 drivers today. The last couple weeks we had smaller grids, so it's good to see everybody back. Chinese Grand Prix is a pretty exciting race, a favorite track for a lot of the drivers, so be interested to see what unfolds today. It looks like dry weather for qualifying. Hopefully dry weather for the race as well. This can be a track that throws some weather into the equation, but we'll go ahead and get all of the good telemetry and things turned on. Looks like a lot of drivers opting to qualify in the softs. You can make a one-stop work here. I believe it's soft to hard, maybe soft to medium. We'll have to wait and see. It's been a while since we have done this track, so strategy it's not super fresh in my mind. But we'll follow along with California here as he's got the joy of laying the first lap down. So we'll follow along him and get to know the track. 2 DRS zones. A couple really distinctive elements of this course are I call them the snails of the complex of turns 1, 2, and 3, and then what California is approaching here right before the straightaway. So those are very, very challenging parts of the course, and especially this one that California is going through now is extremely important to get a good exit down this incredibly long straight. The DRS line, it's so long that the DRS line is about halfway down the straight, otherwise it would be way too powerful. So it's probably the best overtaking opportunity on the entire course is right there into that braking zone, aided by the DRS. So we will follow along board with California as he sets his first lap of the day. We're seeing a mix of soft and medium. I would imagine most drivers would be choosing the soft tires. But California, as he's crossing the line, he's got his ERS and fuel turned all the way up. Braking late here, you can kind of just put a dab of the brake in, and then you're kind of chasing that apex all the way around. And then another tight left-hander can be a really challenging corner to get a good exit from. He keeps a pretty tight line, which will help on traction certainly. He's going to be approaching a right-hander now, braking pretty hard. There's some outlap traffic that's kindly moving out of the way. As he's rounding off the first sector here into the second sector, this left-hander is basically flat now. You can see he's not even taking a lift. The downforce in the 2020 cars is pretty remarkable. It doesn't have to lift through that corner. And then here, another tricky kind of double apex left-hander. Another little mini straight. You can, if you get a really good exit, take a lunge down into this overtaking spot here. And then, like I mentioned, this snail is very challenging. Important to get a really good exit. You want to keep a tight line there so you can straighten out the car and get on the throttle really early. And you got a lot of time to think about your DRS line and pick your braking marker. I believe it's turn 14. My turn numbers are not too precise, but I believe it's turn 14 that he's approaching now. Looks like he broke a little bit late, and he got a little bit on the exit curve there, so that's going to cost him a couple of tenths. Last corner, really throw it in. Very easy to invalidate there, especially on the outside. But he sets a 1:30.4. Pretty good lap time for him. I think he'll be happy with that as a banker time. Looks like JX is also on a flying lap. He's on the medium tires. Like I said, a lot of drivers on the softs. We've got, looks like one of the McLarens who's out on the lap right now with Buzz. Jay Gray sets his time over 1:30.6, so he will be sliding into P2. Looks like the Renault of Miami just went fastest overall. His teammate slotted in right behind him with a 1:30.3 and Beck with a 1:30.6. So it is the Renaults on the front row right now as JX is going to be approaching the line on his medium tires. He sets a 1:33.9, so that might have been a lap for him to just get familiar with the circuit. As Zamaglis now is the next across the line on the mediums. He goes 6th fastest with a 1:31.7 before Puppet Master goes into the 29s with a 1:29.7. So almost 2 seconds faster than Zamaglis that we just saw. It is Janet now crossing the line with a little bit of a wobble there. Looks like he's just maybe starting a lap. His ERS is a little bit off, so he might have been doing a lap to kind of get his side in and maybe burn off a little bit of fuel. So be seeing if he's able to best that time. Lit Romney's also setting a time on the mediums. He goes 36 or 33.6. It looks like Bag of Bones is the next across the line. He's invalidated, but he looks like he's going to be choosing to carry on. And as he's slowing down now, not quite sure what the reason for that is. Maybe to he might have run out of fuel. Don't know exactly what his problem is. Fuzz is coming in the pits. RC's on an out lap, but as a lot of these drivers have set their first time, looks like the first are Ferrari going very slowly as he's heading into the pits. A lot of these drivers now have set their first time. It is Puppet Master on provisional pole with a 1:29.7. Miami and Dylan, the 2 Renaults behind him before California, Beck, Jay Gray, all of those runners on the softs. Then you have Zamaglis and Mitt Romney who set times on the medium tires. Coxey in 9th on the softs. A couple more medium runners before some drivers on out laps and starting flying laps. Look like Adri might have had an issue with his lap, his out lap, but he looks like he's setting up to start a flying lap. As it looks like RC is also on a flying lap right now, and Bag of Bones looks like he is on a flying lap as well. So we'll keep maybe an in lap for him as his fuel light is going crazy. So we'll see what those drivers are able to do now. If those sector screens are right, RC just went purple through sector 1. So we will see if he is able to build on that through the rest of the lap. Ooh, looks like that is Janet, the Mercedes. Might have lost traction in the middle of sector 1. As you exit that snail, that left-hander is a really, really tricky corner for traction. And it looks like Janet might have just been caught out by that. His Bag of Bones is diving into the pits. Fuzz is on an out lap. I believe RC, looks like he's had a mistake. So we caught just the tail end of this, but looks like he had a mistake in the snail before he started his, on his flying lap. So he will be needing to improve upon that. Adri looks like he's invalidated his out lap. Lots of in-laps and out-laps and everything to keep track of. Mitt Romney's on the mediums again, so he fancies his chance of getting into the top 10 on those medium tires. Zamaglis is going out on the softs. We've got Beck going out on the soft tires as well. He's on an out-lap. It's like Adri is starting his lap, so that must have been an out lap he invalidated. As he's going slowly, it doesn't... Maybe not quite sure, as we've got Barton, who's in the wall here. I wonder if he's going to be able to get back into the pits from where he's situated right now, or if he's going to have to go all the way around. So he's going to have to go a long way around the track, and with only 9 minutes left in the session, that means he's probably only going to be able to get one more run. So he's going to have to limp all the way around. It looks like maybe on his lap on, or his maybe banker time on the mediums might have had a mistake there that cost him that lap time as well. Fuzz starting a flying lap. He still doesn't have a time on the board. Looks pretty smooth through turns 1 and 2. A little bit of a lock up there. Straightens out the car pretty well there, using a lot of the track on the right. Ooh. Quite sure what that was. Looks like he wasn't able to see the track very well. As Puppet Master improves on his time, I believe. or starts his lap, sorry. He's starting his lap. So we'll see if he's able to improve. Fuzz looking pretty good so far. Ooh, runs very wide there, and that's going to invalidate his lap time. Puppet Master is down by just under a tenth, so he's finding some time. We'll see if he's able to find more time here in the second sector. Looks like there's a Mercedes of Zamaglis who's on a flying lap behind him, so we'll have to follow on board with him once we see Puppet Master's second sector split here and see what he's able to do. Looks pretty tidy through the second sector. Doesn't look like he's pushing too hard just yet. And he's lost a little bit of time, so he's not finding maybe as much time as he thought he would. Zamaglis has found 2/10. That's going to put him very close to that 1 minute 30 range. If he's able to continue that his improvement, as he finds a lot of time in the second sector, so that's where his mistake must have been, as he's up 7/10, so he's going to be very close to getting into the 130s. Looks like we've got a Renault who's about to cross the line. Or maybe that was Miami who did cross the line for provisional pole with a 129.3. So Puppet Master was able to improve to a 29.6, but Miami improved even more to a 29.3. So a good job from him. Looks like Puppet Master is either on an in-lap or maybe just taking another run at it. Beck looks like he's coming in, dealing with a lock up there on what looks like his second flying lap. He might be working out a tow with his teammate in front of him down that back straight. That might give him quite a few tenths. It looks like they're spaced out pretty well, if that's something they worked out beforehand. If not, it's a very happy accident for them. There's a big lock up there into the left-hander, and his teammate moves out of the way, so Dylan will be a little upset that he couldn't get the benefit of the tow there, as his teammate might have been able to give him a pretty good slipstream down the back straight, but instead decided to move out and allow him to get a good exit. A little bit of a lockup and won't cost him too much time. In the final corner, looks like he does a good job to keep it on track there. He'll be probably pretty pleased with this time as he finds a couple of tenths. Moves up to the second row, 30.1, so he wasn't quite able to find enough time to get him onto the front row, but certainly cementing his place on the second row right now. Zamaglis looks like he is on an in-lap. We'll see. Yep, he's coming into the pits. So a lot of drivers have now been able to set their second time, and are maybe going to be getting that last set of soft tires and fuel load just right for their final runs here. In our short qualifying, this looks like one of the Racing Points is stopped on the start-finish straight. That looks like Bag of Bones. Don't know if he had a mistake through the final corner or what exactly happened with him, but he's going very slowly. Looks like he's up to speed now. Zenith looks like he's on an in-lap. He was able, just 7/100ths away from also breaking into the 29s. He has improved his grid position here quite a bit, up to third. So looks like we got some outlaps from the drivers just on the fringes of the top 10. The two Ferraris of Jay Gray and Mitt Romney's. I believe that's Coxey who just set a time. A 132.1 on the medium tires still, so he might be, he should have enough time to go out for one more run. Looks like that's JX going out of the way, maybe on an outlap to let some traffic through. Like RC's on a flying lap. Let's follow along with him and see if he's able to improve from his 140. So he must have had a couple of mistakes to get that time, but he should be able to find quite a bit of time from there, I guess. Yeah, almost a full second up just through the first two sectors. Ferrari set to cross the line. RC finds a lot of improvement there in the third sector. Must have been where his mistakes were. He was able to go 130.9 overall, so it's like Coxey is going very slowly. Looks like he's completely out of fuel and ERS. As Lit Romney has an invalid time. Fuzz still in the pits. Let's see, Puppet Master's on an outlap. None of the other top 5 on an outlap yet. They still got enough time left in the session. Barton looks like he's on an in-lap. He was able to go fifth fastest with a 130.2. Looks like Zimbalgas has just started a flying lap, so let's follow along with him and see what he's able to do. We'll keep an eye on those top 5 drivers and see if they're able to do anything as well. Looks like Barton. Let's check. He looks like on the in-lap. Zimbalgas found 2/10 through the first sector. So he'll be pleased with that improvement, but he's going to be looking for more. Briefly down to second gear, they're getting that little bit of extra rotation. But to pick his braking marker well, still about those 2/10, so he'll have to be really aggressive braking here for the hairpin if he wants to break into the top 10. Looks like some of those other drivers in the top 5 on outlaps, Puppet Master, Jimmett, and Dylan, all on an outlap as well as California. So a lot of drivers looking to dethrone Miami, who is on provisional pole and is not out on track yet. It looks like he's still in the pits, so we will go check on him in just a minute after we see what Zimbalgas is able to do on his lap. Coxey behind has retired from the session, so he's going to be on board looking to enjoy those final laps. Zimbalgas was able to go 130.093, so very, very close to his teammate who's on a lap like right now. Puppet Master needs to find 3/10 if he wants to take provisional pole, and he's found a 10.5. Miami's still not coming out on track, so that is going to be his lap time for the session, the 129.3. Puppet Master found a 10.5 through the first sector. We'll see if he can find any more. That's a little bit wide there, but don't think that'll cost him too much. He's found a lot of time through the second sector. He's 3/10 up. He's going to have to make sure he matches what he's done in his last lap in this third sector if he wants to take provisional pole, and it looks like he should be able to do that as he gets a clean exit out onto the back straight. Opens up that DRS, and he's going to be seeing how late and brave he can be on the brakes. Rotates well down all the way to first gear and then up to third quickly to ensure some good traction through the last corner. Looks pretty smooth through there, and he goes less than 1/10 of a second ahead of Miami for provisional pole. Jinnit is not improving on his time. Zimbalgas is stopped. Dylan, let's see what he's able to do. Beck is just barely up on his time. Let's see if Dylan is able to do anything. California does not look to be on a flying lap. Dylan, big lockup into the hairpin. He rides the final corner. It looks pretty tidy. He goes 30.089. So he somehow squeezes himself between the two Mercedes, who were only about 0.02 of a second apart. He filled in that gap about 0.02 of a second. So those three drivers, very, very close. California doesn't look to be on a flying lap. Bag of Bones is finished with his flying lap, but Romney looks like he's coming into the pits. So I think that is our top, I think that is our grid set. So we saw some really solid laps at the end of the session. Puppet Master and Miami both very, very close at the top. On the front row, both setting 29.3. Puppet Master with a 29.316 and Miami with 29.372, so about 600ths of a second separate them. Zenith, Dylan, Zamoglis separated by less than 300ths of a second, so very close there from positions 3 through 5. Barton and Beck, once again, two drivers separated by very slim margins of just 19 thousandths of a second. We will check the rest of our grid in just a minute. But a very tight battle for pole position, and a tight battle for that second row as well. So Puppet Master on pole from Miami, about a half a tenth between them. Zenith, Dylan, and Zamoglis, we've already discussed how close they were. Barton and Beck, that have a very small gap between those two as well. Then it's California in 8th, JX in 9th, and J Gray in 10th. All of those drivers in the top 10 on soft compound tires. RC will get poor man's pole and get free choice of tires heading into the race. He's in 11th, then Bag of Bones in 12th, Coxie 13th, Lit Romney 14th, Adri 15th, and Fuzz will be starting from the back as he has not set a time in qualifying. So as you can see from this qualifying session, some extremely small gaps between drivers. Some extremely small gaps between drivers, just checking to make sure that we've I'm not missing any comments or anything. And it should be on for a solid race as well. I'm not seeing anything in our chat about wet weather during the race, so we should have some nice clean dry track for our race today. As we will start our formation lap here very soon, but drivers eager to get on with our race today. But a very tight qualifying session, especially at the top. We've seen some what can be dominant performances at times here in our EU tier, but those two drivers very close between Puppet Master and Miami for pole, so hopefully we'll see that sort of battle play out in the race as well. And then you can just remember from the tight gaps we had from 3rd through 5th and between Barton and Beck as well. Some really evenly matched drivers that should produce a very good race for us today. Let's get our tire information up to see what tires everyone's elected to go on. Looks like everyone outside the top 10 has chosen to go on the hards, with the exception of Lit Romney, who's opted for the mediums. So the soft's definitely the qualifying tire here, not the race tire. So yeah, I can't say that's just too much of a surprise. And this is a track where it is pretty possible to overtake. You have to manage to get a pretty good exit down that back straight, but that back straight with the addition of DRS, pretty generous spot for overtaking. As you can see, this predicted strategy there is either the soft hard. If you want to run the medium tires, you're going to have to be stopping twice, or at least AWS thinks so. I would imagine most of those drivers in the top 10 will be going soft hard, unless there's a safety car, in which we might see some drivers switch things up. Outside the top 10, though, some drivers on hards looking to run deep into the race, maybe take advantage of a late safety car if they are so fortunate. But like I was saying, this is a track where you can overtake pretty well into the hairpin, and we've seen in real life where that's gone wrong before, a la Max Verstappen and Sebastian Vettel. In the game, obviously, those things can happen as well, but as long as you're able to stay in DRS, it is pretty possible to overtake here. So I would imagine we will see quite a bit of overtaking and close racing today, especially given the qualifying gaps. But 28 laps await us here at the Chinese Grand Prix. A little bit of a hiccup getting started, getting the lobby set up. We had some some issues I'm seeing now. Somebody in our Discord mentioning that Jeff told him on the formation lap that rain in 15 minutes. So we might have the wet weather throwing some strategy out the window for drivers if there is issues. But we'll have to wait and see about that as we sit and wait for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lights to come on. Lights out and away we go. It is Puppet Master getting a pretty clean start. Miami alongside him. Looks like everyone got away cleanly. The two Renaults as Dylan is going up the inside of Jinnit. So he's holding that position. Looks like Zamoglis has fallen back the order. Looks like no contact or anything, just a very tight turn one, and he's lost out on a few positions on this opening lap. California has done a very good job in the Alfa Romeo, moving up to 4th position. Down at the back, there's some swapping around between Adri and Bag of Bones, but up at the front, still single file from Puppet Master, Miami, Dylan, all getting clean giveaways. California doing a good job moving up. Jinnit has dropped back just a little bit. Jay Gray has done a good job moving up as well. Barton right behind him. He might be taking a dive into this next left-hander if he's able to get a good exit. See, as they fall in there, looks like the Haas got a little bit of a wobble going. Zamoglis very close as Barton picks up a little bit of the grass, so that might affect his exit. So Zamoglis might be able to take a dive here as the Ferrari is going very far to the right. That looks like Jay Gray trying to break the slipstream, as his teammate also behind trying to break that slipstream. Such a long, long straightaway. We'll see if anybody fancies a move. Barton's going down the inside. He just leaves enough room on the outside, and looks like Jay Gray is going to hold on for the time being. So from the first lap, Puppet Master is able to lead as the Haas goes very wide there. It looks like JXW going very wide. But forgive the timing, it will sort itself out in a minute, but some very tight battles here for what I believe is 6th position with Jay Gray, Barton, and Zamoglis. Puppet Master was able to pull out pretty comfortably out front. It must be said, we'll wait for the timing screens to sort themselves out to get the angles just right. There we go. He's still within a second, Miami, and his teammate within a second behind him. Once again, a one-stop strategy. A lot of these drivers going to be targeting from the softs onto the hard tires. Rain could throw that off. It might be a big benefit, as Bag of Bones has had to come into the pits and fit the medium tires, so he must have had some front wing damage from some incident, but I apologize for missing. Those drivers on the medium tires might be positioned very well if rain in fact does come in 15 minutes. I doubt the softs would last that long. But we'll have to wait and see. And some very powerful slipstream here from Barton. All over the back of Jay Gray. We'll see if he is able to get the move done this time. It looks like he got it done pretty much before the braking zone. As he brakes very abruptly. Some smoke coming up from, looks like Jinnit in front, who might have locked up. So Jay Gray, I don't know if he just wants to settle in and live to fight another day, or if he just maybe got caught out there. Looks like he had enough ERS that he could have fought it if he wanted to. So Marvelous on the back of that battle, eager for one of those drivers to make a mistake to see if he can slip through. Up front, Puppet Master has extended his gap to over a second, so even though DRS has been enabled this lap, he's done a good job of extending that gap. It's right around a second. He cannot make any mistakes if he wants to. It's going to be really important for him to keep that gap above 1 second by the time they get to that DRS detection zone for the back straight. The two Renaults behind him starting to form a little bit of a gap to California in 4th. Who's got Jill for company just a half second behind him. We are watching the battle here for 6th. It is Barton just pulling a little bit away from Jay Gray, who's got Zamoglis and Beck and JX close behind him. So, as we expected, looks like up front Puppet Master has kept that gap just over a second. So I don't think Miami is going to have DRS, but his teammate behind him, Dylan, will. So we'll see as they approach the line, as we've got a yellow flag in Sector 2 for RC who's gone off. So maybe that might cause a safety car as we wait and see the two Renaults going side by side down the back straight. we'll see who breaks later. It looks like Miami is going to hold the position for now, as looks like RC might have had another incident. Maybe his tire's overheating, just not too happy with his car right now. There's Puppet Master, who's been able to pull a gap of about 1.6 seconds out front, so he's done a good job. Somebody dove into the pits. That looks like Beck diving into the pits, so don't know if he had damage. We'll see if he opts to change his front wing or not. Doesn't look like he has any damage. He's just fitting the medium tires, so maybe he's playing that rain game a little bit and choosing to go on the mediums, as we've got an incident up here. Barton looks like he's lost out, so I wonder, as someone goes off, JX has gone off through the brake markers, so I don't know what happened with him, but we'll follow along and see if, looks like his front wing's okay. Maybe just lost traction and wheel to wheel there with Barton. Fuzz is on the back of his car, eager to get by into 9th place. Up front, the gap from Puppet Master to Miami has stayed right about the same, about 1.6 seconds. We'll see now if Jinnit or if Dylan are going to make a move on the drivers in front. Dylan will have DRS, but he's not going to have much overtake. Looks like he's not closing that gap very much. Now he pulls out at the last minute and thinks better of it, and is just going to fire in behind Jinnit, deciding to live and fight another day. Zamaglis goes down the inside of J. Gray, goes very deep, big lockup, and then on the runoff there, he lost a little bit of grip, so he was struggling a little bit, as we see some drivers diving into the pit. So indeed, if that rain is coming, when people said this call to pit a couple laps early might benefit them greatly if they're able to go and run deep into this race and wait for the rain. Looks like a lot of them choosing to go into the hard tires, so maybe the rain will not be coming quite when we believe, or as heavy as we might think. We'll have to wait and see, but it's Dylan out front right now. I think if those drivers are not expecting rain or a safety car, lap 5 is a little bit early for me to be pitting here, but I'm not in the cockpit, they are, so they are the ones making the decisions. But Dylan is out front, California behind him, Jinnit very close in third. All three of those drivers yet to pit on their soft tires they just started the race with. We'll see, as I would expect Jinnit to get quite a nice slipstream from Dylan and California in front, so I would expect him to get be liking his chances to make an overtake here. He's fallen back a little bit. Looks like he didn't get as clean of an exit as he might have hoped for. Indeed, not using any of his ERS, choosing to just harvest a little bit. So we'll see if any of these drivers choose to dive into the pits now. These top 4 have all yet to pit. And it looks like California and Jinnit deciding to box, with Dylan and Barton choosing to come in. So those two choosing to extend that soft compound stint just that little bit longer, seeing if that's going to give them an advantage later in the race, maybe thinking they'll have fresher tires at the end if the rain chooses not to come. But that promotes Fuzz up into third, so he's done a very good job, as Beck sets fastest lap with a 1:34.5. Lit Romney's done a good job on those medium tires. He's got Adri right behind him, though. He's going to be eager to get by. Only half a second between them. So it looks like that gap from Puppet Master to Miami has grown a little bit after the pit stop. So it looks like Puppet Master might be a little bit happier on those hard tires than Miami. That gap was around 1.6 when they pit, and now it's extended by about half a second. So we'll see if that changes. We'll keep an eye on that gap, as that can, as Jinnit picks up a 3-second time penalty. So that's pretty early in this race to be picking up a time penalty, especially if the rain does come. That could really challenge him to keep within those track limits. But I would imagine each of these drivers up front will be boxing this lap based off of when the competition has. Yep, both of them choosing to box, which is going to promote Fuzz up into the lead of this race, with Coxie behind, and then Lit Romney barely holding off the other McLaren of Adri for third. But don't wait and see, as both of those drivers going wide, both pushing very hard. Adri using overtake and DRS to try and get by here. Thought he might pull out there at the last minute and make a dive up the inside of turn 1. You can overtake into turn 1 as he tags the back of Lit Romney. Both of them have wing damage now. I think they both might be having to make a trip to the stewards after that. As now Lit Romney's dropped down a couple places. Puppet Master was able to sneak through in the wake of all of that. Miami has made it past Lit Romney, but still has to make it past Adri, so that gap between the effective leaders of Puppet Master and Miami, that gap now has an extra complication of Miami needs to get back past Adri, who has front wing damage. Looks like Adri does the sensible thing, knowing that he's not in that battle with Miami, and just pulls out and allows him to resume his pursuit of Puppet Master. That gap is about 2.6 seconds, so still within that range where Miami can put together a few laps. He can get back within the DRS of Puppet Master, but as I say that gap is growing a little bit, as it looks like one of the racing points of Barton maybe just lost traction a little bit, as his teammate behind him, Bag of Bones, is lining up a move on RC here with DRS. Pulls out to the right, and he looks like he's got that move done well before braking. Adri and is choosing to pit. Lit Romney deciding to stay out, so either thinking that he might be able to carry this wing damage for a few more laps. Would think that here missing an end plate and being on those medium tires that are going to start to wear here pretty soon is going to be quite the hindrance, as he tries to fight back with California. Ooh, I got very close to touching there. Romney almost lost more of his wing as he picks up a time penalty. I would imagine he would need to pit soon, but we've got quite a train forming behind him now, with Beck, Jinnit, and Jay Gray and Zamaglis not too far behind either. As we have, ooh, very close there from the Mercedes and the Ferrari, and very close once again. Oh, I wish they were giving us a better camera angle. But all sorts of swapping around here, as Lit Romney falling back through the order rapidly with that wing damage. 3 of those 4 battling there were able to get past him. Zamaglis, not quite yet. He's going to have DRS. I imagine that Lit Romney won't make this too difficult for him. Yet not using any... Lit Romney using overtake, maybe trying to stay in this battle. If he can stay in the DRS of his teammate ahead, can be difficult to overtake through the first 2 sectors unless you've got an extreme pace advantage. He's diving into the pits now, so we're just holding up for that one more straight, and Zamaglis given that position. So it is Fuzz leading up front, and then Coxie in second. The gap from Puppet Master in effective P1 to Miami in effective P2 is now grown a little bit longer, so excuse me, looks like Puppet Master really enjoying life on those hard tires. Miami having a little bit of an issue adjusting. Dylan in California in 5th and 6th, both opting for the medium tires when they pit. Same with Beck, Jinnit, and most of the rest of the field, with the exception of Barton. Lit Romney, who's coming to pit now, who started on the medium tires, and RC still on the hard tires that he started the race with after a couple of spins. So we will see what happens with the rain. Looks like it's getting a little bit cloudier. So if the rain does come in the next, even the next 10 laps, Fuzz and Coxie are going to be in very, very good positions, as Puppet Master is close to closing up the gap to Coxie, releasing number 6, who's in P2 right now. That gap is just within a second now, so Puppet Master should get DRS down the start-finish straight as Bag of Bones picks up a 3-second time penalty. No overtake being used there, so he will bide his time and probably try down the back straight this lap, I would imagine. The yellow in Sector 3, as it looks like there was a coming together between Beck, who's out of the race, and Jinnit, who's lost some winning one of the racing points. Almost! Oh, that was very close. Quick reactions from Bag of Bones to avoid that, and a VSC deployed. So, don't know what the incident was, but it looks like an incident between Jinnit and Beck, as Jinnit now goes through, and don't know why. Looks like there's some issues with swapping of positions here. Those drivers need to be careful. Everybody coming to a stop. Hopefully no one loses any wing there. Looks like Bag of Bones is okay. Jinnit, we know, has lost some wing already. Doesn't look like RC lost any. Doesn't look like Barton has lost any either. But Jinnit picking up a time penalty for ignoring yellow flags, so don't know if that's a issue with the VSC or not, but we'll see now if either one of those leaders, as VSC has ended, so as soon as I say that, never mind, but Puppet Master was able to close up a ton of time to Coxie during that VSC, and he's going to get by him here down this start-finish straight. Or is he? Coxie, firm defense of P2 in this race. And he just doesn't have the traction on those older hard tires, just doesn't have the traction to come back there to Puppet Master. He'll have DRS, and he's got overtake to use. He's got battery to use, but he's not using it until very late in the straight. So not sure what the incident was between Beck and Jinnit there. Jinnit looks like he's losing a couple of positions now, fighting closely with RC. Is yet to pit, but Jinnit, having lost that front wing, is going to have to come into the pits now for his second stop of the day already. So it's Fuzz leading. He's yet to make his pit stop in this race. Puppet Master in P2 has stopped already for the hards, and he's done a good job working his way back up through the field. Coxie in P3. Once again, not boxed yet. Miami, that gap to Puppet Master now is effectively about 2.5 seconds. So the gap was around 1.6 before the pit stop window. That grew a little bit wider after the pit stop. Is now starting to close up. Don't know why Miami was not able to get DRS, but he looks like he's going to be making the move on Coxie here. Coxie sensibly knowing that it's a totally different race than he is running from Miami at this stage, and allows him through. So that gap to Puppet Master came down a little bit through the overtaking of Coxie, who's in P4 now. So we'll keep an eye on that and see if that's going to continue to come down, or if Puppet Master is going to be able to build that gap up once again. But his gap to Fuzz is coming down corner by corner. As those hard tires will still probably be fairly comfortable for the next 10 or so laps, I'd imagine. Before they really start to fall off. Looking down the field, we got a close battle here between Zimaglis and J-Gray for P7, but otherwise gaps starting to emerge here, so that VSC, a couple incidents that we've had, have just spread the field out a little bit. Looking here at who's gained and lost the most positions, I think you can ignore the top four, as that's slightly thrown off by Fuzz and Coxie, who's starting to pit. But Zimaglis has lost a few positions here. I believe there was some lap 1 incidents there, and then see a few raindrops starting to fall. So that rain coming at what could be a very, very good time for Fuzz and Puppet Master, who are in Fuzz and Coxie, excuse me, who are in P1 and P4. They might have just played that rain perfectly. Is there yet to stop, and RC is yet to stop. But the rain definitely falling now. The track can get very slimy. If they can stand it on those used hard tires, Coxie and Fuzz might be in a very good spot to. If the switch to intermediates is ever going to need to come, there can be in a very, very good spot here. If the track, sometimes in these sorts of situations where the rain comes mid-race, happened in 2019 a lot, but in 2020 it can happen sometimes where it just kind of gets drizzly, but the track never really gets wet enough to need those intermediate tires. And if that's what happens here, it could come back to bite Coxie and Fuzz a little bit, as they're just going to struggle on those hards to keep any sort of temperature in them. Mitt Romney deciding to go to the intermediates, so we'll see what he's able to do on those. Pretty early call, I think, but down where he is, he's really got nothing to lose. And if the track does indeed, if the rain starts to fall quickly and the track gets wet quickly, then he might be in a good position there to make up some places as Coxie has spun. Oh no, so under traction, those hard tires might have been okay, but under traction with the rain falling, not just too much for that used rubber to handle. So unfortunate for him. Up at the front, Puppet Master has made it past Fuzz. So Fuzz might not be aware of what's happened to Coxie, but he will need to be very careful on those hard tires. Like I said, that temperature can just fall away to nothing. On the hards, it can be really difficult to keep any sort of heat in them. But as I was saying, it can't be it can't be the case that sometimes in these sorts of races it rains, the track kind of gets slimy, but not ever really wet enough for the intermediate tires. But based off of Coxie going on to the intermediates and now Zenith spinning down under traction at the hairpin as well, it might be the case that this track is going to get pretty wet here in the coming laps, and that drivers might need to switch onto the intermediate tires. So we'll see. We have two drivers down at the back. I'd imagine Zenith is going to be opting to go for those as well. We'll see what tire choice he goes for, but as Puppet Master struggling a little bit under traction there out of the hairpin, so that's a really challenging spot, as Fuzz is also caught out, so he's the third driver to be caught out by acceleration at the hairpin, as Puppet Master and Miami both choosing to come into the pits. Miami's struggling a little bit even as he's coming into the pits there. So it must be that the rain is really coming down. Drivers switching onto the intermediate tires, as Puppet Master had to be held just that little extra bit. As we've got, it looks like another driver, I think that's JXW, caught out under traction at the hairpin. So I think the counter's up to 4 now of drivers who've been caught out by traction. And he needs to be careful about how he rejoins. Looks like he's done that pretty safely. So good job from him being very mindful of the drivers around him, as almost everybody in the field now coming on to the intermediate tires. Bag of Bones into the pits, RC into the pits, Barton into the pits, JX into the pits, Adri into the pits. So we'll see now when these drivers are in the pits. Don't think it'll be enough for Lit Romney or Zenith or Coxie to catch the front runners, but it might be enough for them to really close up that gap to the midfield. Puppet Master has retained his lead. Miami in second, Dylan in third. So the top three basically as they were at the start of the race. Let me get the positions gained. Yeah, so Dylan has moved up a position. Fuzz been, despite his spin, has been the big winner here so far in the race, moving up to fourth place. He timed his spin well with the transition over to the intermediate tires, but now the entire field choosing to go with the intermediates. Not sure how long this rain is going to stick around, but every single driver being in agreement that the track is indeed wet enough to switch to those intermediate tires. As we have someone else, looks like Zenith again caught out by acceleration, and that's going to bring out the safety car. So there must be just enough front wing carnage down there at oh no, as he's gone straight on and has retired. So I don't know if that was a intentional smash into the wall or not, but the safety car has come out, which is going to bring the field together. So very interesting development here. Like I said, for no driver retiring, it's a little odd to see the safety car come out just for damage and debris, but it is out nonetheless. So that's going to close up these gaps, and it's going to provide us with a pretty exciting remaining, what probably will be 10 laps, 9 to 10 laps after the safety car period, but it is Puppet Master in front. He's retained his lead with Miami in second. Miami will be thankful for this gap, for this safety car, as it's going to close that gap from what was about 2.5 seconds down to virtually nothing. Dylan will be thankful too, as that gap is around 5 seconds. Buzz is going to be thankful that that's going to increase his chances of going from last to first. He's able to get a good restart and display some good pace on the medium or on the intermediate tires. It'll be a tall order to win from here, knowing the pace of Puppet Master in Miami and Dylan. But certainly he might think a podium would be on the cards for him, if he is able to get one of those drivers, or if one of them makes a mistake. California, who has done a good job getting 3 positions so far based off of where he started the race. Jay Gray has gained 4. Zamoglis has just lost out that little bit. Tough race for him so far. Safety car period will maybe give him some confidence moving forward, though, if he is able to make some moves happen in our remaining laps. Bag of Bones and Coxie have done a good job. Coxie went very deep into the race onto the hards, and was one of the mini drivers caught out by the hairpin. JX still in the points, might fancy his chances of climbing even higher in the points. Barton, Lit Rami, Adri, I think have all had to make stops and front wing changes, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, like I said, very interesting to see the safety car come out when it did. We don't normally see the safety car come out unless a driver has retired, which the safety car came out before anybody had retired. We would just get a VSC for spins and debris and that sort of thing. But full-blown safety car, I'm not complaining. It's going to mean some really close racing for the rest of this Grand Prix. As the rain once again coming in as a saving grace right when we need it. And the safety car is just that cherry on top to bring the field close together and produce some good racing. So as we wait for the rest of the field to join up, I think Puppet Master and Miami will be focused on each other. I don't think they'll be feeling too much pressure from the drivers behind. Just going to check the life of everyone's tires. Pretty much all of them came in about the same time. Coxie came in a lap earlier than everybody else. Lit Romney 2 laps, so not any significant changes in tire life for the drivers at the front. For those drivers at the back who've gotten caught up in things, this safety car will be nice for them, as now pretty much anybody thinks that at least points or a podium might be on the cards for them. This looks like Coxey might have gone wide and picked up a time penalty, which allowed Bag of Bones to take a position. Not sure exactly what happened there, but haven't gotten the notification that safety car is in this lap, so we'll probably see one more lap. Which the drivers will probably be a little unhappy with, as there's some more issues down the field. Like I said, maybe drivers trying to swap positions but not being able to. They'll have to be careful. You can get disqualified if you fall too far back from the safety car queue, which Bag of Bones is probably close to doing. So he might have to push a little bit if he to close this up, but looks like there might have been an issue with swapping some positions around. Have to wait for the race debrief to get the full story on that. Looks like they've formed up pretty well, and we should hopefully be able to resume racing this lap. But up at the front, it's going to be Puppet Master trying to hold off the two Renaults. Fuzz trying to see if he can continue his last to first challenge. California and Jay Gray have each gained quite a couple 3 positions so far, seeing if they can move up the field and maybe grab a podium in this race. And Zamaglis trying, I would imagine, also to feel like he might be hungry to regain some of those positions he lost in the earlier stages. The two Hash drivers rounding out the 2 points paying positions right now. RC, as we do get the confirmation that the safety car will be in this lap, RC, Adri, Barton, and Lit Romney all have had various, as we have more issues, and Coxey's in the wall. Don't know what's happening with him. That's a concerning sight, but safety car is coming in this lap regardless. Hope we don't get another one immediately. As we get an odd disqualification for being parked in a dangerous location. It looked to me like he might have just been glitched there, but a very odd disqualification. Very unfortunate. You don't. Disqualifications are always frustrating, but especially when it's a Codemasters related disqualification, not a driver related disqualification. But we'll see once we get this race going. That promotes RC up into the points. I'll be happy with that. Puppet Master looks like he's led pretty well. Pretty good restart from him. Each of the Renaults about a second separating each of about the top 3 drivers right now. Looks like Bag of Bones and Zamaglis going very close, and we'll follow along with this battle as we monitor the gaps up front. Can be really tricky this first lap or two after a safety car is always a little bit tricky with tire temperatures, but especially with the rain, it can be even trickier to get temperature into those tires. So it could just be a couple laps of drivers kind of tiptoeing around and feeling their way around these intermediate conditions, especially as that tire temperature comes back to them. Looks like Miami is able to hold on to that gap of around 1.3, 1.4 seconds for the most part so far. But Dylan dropping off the back a little bit. Fuzz hoping that he can get within that 1 second window. No DRS in the wet weather conditions. But still being within that second gap, especially with the slipstream down the back straight. I would still think even without DRS, that slipstream is might be just the boost you need to get by someone. Bag of Bones is not able to get a great exit, so he's going to have to maybe wait. Ooh, see, just had a little bit of a hint of a lock up there. Driver's going to need to be very careful accelerating out of the hairpin loop. I think the counter's up to 4 or 5 drivers who spun and gotten caught out there. hopefully now they've adjusted to the wet weather conditions and made the changes necessary of changing differential or changing fuel mixtures as they're coming out of there to prevent wheel spin. But yeah, quite a few drivers getting caught out there, at least as the conditions were changing. Now once they've stabilized, maybe they'll be okay. But here's Puppet Master up at the front, who's extended that gap to about 1.9 seconds to Miami in P2. So Puppet Master feeling very comfortable in the car today. Miami looked like he might have been able to challenge him a little bit on the soft tires in the first stint of this race, but as they switched onto the hard tires and now onto the intermediates, Puppet Master looks very, very comfortable leading from the front. Miami is looking just about as comfortable in P2 as Puppet Master is in P1, as he's got a gap around 2 seconds to Dylan. Fuzz must have made a mistake because California's coming at him now, and Fuzz might have to defend a little bit as they're going down this back straight. Don't know if that's a glitch with you can't get stuck in overtake mode. I don't know if that's California being stuck in overtake mode or just using up all of his battery trying to get past Fuzz. It doesn't look like he's going to be close enough. It looks like this is too far back to make a lunge. As Jay Gray arriving quickly on the scene there, closing up, braking very well in the wet. Ooh, a little bit of a wobble there from California. He's able to save it, but we'll monitor this battle up at the front. The front three are really starting to spread out, about 2.5 seconds between each of them. This battle for fourth, though, is still on. California looks like he's pushing very hard to close the gap to Fuzz. It's a track that can be slightly difficult to follow through the second sector. If you're able to stick close, as Puppet Master has picked up a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. So that's going to shake up the battle up at the front, as now Puppet Master's got 7 laps left. He's got to pull out 9/10 of a second, so he's going to have to find some serious pace. I mean, he's looked comfortable up there so far, building that gap to around 2 seconds, but it's a tall order to build an entire, now 8/10 as he's really unleashing his ERS down the back straight, but he's going to have to pull out 8/10 of a second if he wants to win. I don't believe Miami has any time penalties. Could be mistaken, so I apologize if Miami does have time penalties. I just missed that, but as far as I know, Puppet Master will be demoted to P2 for that. So he's going to have to really push these last laps. Doesn't look like there's going to be any change in conditions. If the rain really starts to pour down and the switch to full wets is necessary, might be cause for another pit stop, but as RC's coming into the pits, I'm not quite sure what the reasoning for that is. Maybe a front wing change. JX is coming in as well, so they must have had an incident, and they're each needing a front wing change. Nope, as JX is just changing tires, as is RC. They're going to full wets. Both of those drivers going to full wets, so as I said that, 2 drivers deciding that yes, full wets are the tire. So now we're going to see an entire different element to this last stage of the race. Are any drivers going to try to stay out on the intermediates? Who's going to choose to go to the full wets? Puppet Master might be thinking that, you know, if he were to pit and come out later, if other drivers decide to try and stick it out on the inters, who knows? That gap's around 2.6 seconds, so he's able to find quite a bit of time. I think he might be comfortable that he might be able to build that 3-second gap, but I don't think he's going to want to box unless Miami does. Miami might be thinking, if I can just hang on to these inters, then I might have a race win here. So we'll be interested to know what those top 3-4 drivers decide to do. JX and RC didn't have a ton to lose by staying out. They're deciding to stay the course, as is Dylan in P3. We'll see if Fuzz dives in here. Nope, he's going to stay the course as California decides that he's going to go onto the wets. So California in P5, the first driver. Oh, it looks like that might have been an incident between Bag of Bones and Zamaglis, as maybe one of them was going into the pits or one of them wasn't. But Bag of Bones, just by nature of where he was able to get around to the pit lane, and Zamaglis is going to have to go all the way around. So don't know if Zamaglis was braking early for the corner and Bag of Bones thought he was continuing on. Not sure exactly what happened there, but Zamaglis hit from behind. And just by nature of where he spun, he's going to have to limp all the way back around. So if he was trying to come into the pits, he's going to be furious that he has to go around an entire other lap, as the top 7 now on the intermediates, the second 6 drivers on the wet tires. So we'll see if those top 4 runners decide that gap. Puppet Master has pulled out that 3-second gap that he needs to cover his time penalty. So now he might have to try and either just hang on to the intermediates or react if Miami decides to dive in behind him. So a little bit of a blind chess match for Puppet Master. I would imagine he will only want to box if Miami does, and Miami's got the benefit of being behind him, so he could get the jump on him. On Miami, I think about pitting here. He's deciding not to. See if Dylan decides to. Yep, Dylan's going to dive into the pits. We can see if Fuzz decides to come into the pits next. Struggling under traction there again. Fuzz is going to stay out, so Fuzz thinks that staying out on the intermediates is going to give him the best chance of a podium in this race. Lit Romney going slow through the hairpin there. He's going to try to hold on to those intermediate tires. Same thing with Zamaglis, going to try to hold on to those intermediates, thinking that they can give them the best shot of some points in this race. Kudos to Lit Romney. He was the one who boxed before everyone else on those intermediates, and he's done a good job hanging on to those for 10 laps. Let's see if he's able to do it for 4 more. Dylan looks like he's just coming to grips with those wet tires. We'll see if his teammate and any of the other front runners decide to respond. Puppet Master has really started to extend that gap, so it was hanging around that 2-second margin until Puppet Master picked up the time penalty, and he really kicked it up a notch. It was hammer time. So let's see if either one of them decide to jump in. For Fuzz, if he's able to hang on to these intermediate tires, he's got quite a large gap to the drivers in front. It looks like he's just struggling so much for grip, though. You can see how low he's having to be in the rev range, how early he's shifting up to eliminate the wheel spin. Finally, when he's in a straight line, he can floor it and use his ERS, but you can see just how slowly he's having to go as the front 2 each deciding to stay out. Big lockup for Fuzz as he's going into the hairpin, but Dylan has closed up that gap. It was about 12 seconds to Jay Gray, and that's down to 8 seconds now, less than 8 seconds. So a really good job. Jay Gray getting past Fuzz as Fuzz is really struggling here, but Dylan, that gap is coming down quickly. The wet tires are the tires to be on, as Lit Romney has picked up a time penalty for multiple warnings. So that's going to drop him down about 3 seconds, which right now would actually not affect his finishing position, but we'll wait and see what JX does to that. But Dylan is really flying on those wet tires. He was in P3 when he boxed, and it looks like at the rate that Fuzz and Jay Gray are going right now that he is going to regain that P3 pretty rapidly here. As the intermediate tires are just, there's not enough grip, as yellow in Sector 1 and Sector 2. It's Lit Romney. He looks like he's up to speed now. It looks like he's lost a left end plate and damage to his left side of his front wing. So those drivers who risked it staying out on the intermediate tires, excuse me, they're really paying the price, as those are not the tires to be on right now. Dylan now less than a second from Fuzz. The gap was about 15 when he came out of the pits, and that gap has disappeared. The wet tires, the full wets are just so much more effective as the wind is really coming down now. Fuzz, I don't know if that was a choice to let him by or he just had no grip, but Dylan gets by Fuzz, and he's got a gap of about 2 seconds, 2.5 to Jay Gray in front of him. So I would imagine, based off of the performance we've seen from Dylan on the full wet tires now, that it's going to be an easy move to get done. Fuzz decides to come into the pits now. The wet tires just costing so much time. There's Jay Gray getting a little sideways there through turn 1 and 2. He's a little sideways again. He's hanging on to P3, but I don't think he's going to be able to hang on to that position for much longer. He's gone a little wide here. But Dylan, you can just see how much more grip he has. Ooh, as Jay Gray, they're not giving us the front wind angle is not the best for watching two cars go side by side, but you could see there just how much trouble Jay Gray was having under braking. Almost went into the back of Dylan, and Dylan, based off of the pace that he's had on these wets, he might be able to challenge for P2 here. It's a tall order, 14 seconds, but the intermediate tires are not up to the task right now. They're just not moving enough water to get that grip that you need. It's like Zimaglis has had maybe a spin at the end of the first sector. We're following along board with Dylan now, who's made the risky call to box from P5, or box from P3, excuse me, came out in, I believe, P5 or 6, and made up that gap to come back all the way to where he was before he pit, P3. And now if either of those, we've got 2 laps left, if either Puppet Master or Miami, they've committed to finishing on the intermediate tires. If either one of them makes a mistake, or if the pace drops off like we've seen it with other drivers, Dylan could snatch a P2 or maybe even a victory. But certainly now I don't think Puppet Master and Miami will choose the box. I think they'll have to commit to finishing on those intermediate tires. Seen that gap come down a couple seconds already. I believe it was about 14 seconds at the end of the lap. Or at maybe the beginning of Sector 3. We've seen it come down probably around 2 seconds a sector. We'll see if that continues, but yeah, it could very well be that Dylan's able to snatch P2 from his teammate here. You can see just how conservative they're having to be on the traction here, as his teammate Miami's struggling. See just how delicate he's being on the throttle and the steering input there. You can see as Dylan is going through here, he can be a lot more aggressive, take the car to a lot higher revs. As Zimaglis has had another spin, so he tried to hold on with those intermediate tires. That was not the decision to make, unfortunately. So Dylan around 8 seconds back from his teammate. That's going to be too much, I think, for California. On the wet tires, trying to go down the inside of Jay Gray, was not quite close enough, but he's going to have better grip here. Even though he's on the wet side of the track off the racing line, he had so much better grip. Then Jay Gray was able to get that position. and all that, I must have missed. Fuzz came into the pits, and he's put on another set of wet tires, so he must have had damage or something that caused him to come in, so apologize for missing that. Same thing with Lit Romney, looks like he's boxed again. I'm just looking at the age of their tires. Well, Lit Romney was on the intermediates and must have just decided to switch at the very end. Same thing with Fuzz. If the race was maybe one more lap, you would have maybe fancied Dylan to snatch a P2 or a race victory here, but he should, barring any spins by any of the top three, he should finish in P3. Puppet Master could basically coast to the coast to the line now and finish with that victory. As we look down the field, looks like RC is very close to JX. That could be the last move that last overtake that we might be able to see today. A little bit sideways there. He got out onto the wet part of the track there. That's not going to be good enough to get the traction he needs. But it is Puppet Master who crossed the line to win the Chinese Grand Prix. Miami's going to hold out in second. Both of them stretching those intermediate tires. Dylan coming home in third made the very risky decision to box for the wets, and he was rewarded with a podium. California's going to come home in fourth. A fantastic race for him. He's done a really good job. Jay Gray coming home in fifth. JX in sixth, and with time penalties, that's going to promote JX up to fifth, actually, as Adri comes home in eighth. Barton crosses the line in ninth. Fuzz is going to be that final point recipient of the day as he crosses the line in 10th. Bag of Bones, I believe, caught up in a few incidents. Good job from him for persevering, finishing 12th. Lit Romney did all he could to stretch those intermediates, but it was not on the cards for him today. He's going to come home in 12th. And Zamaglis, victim of an incident going into the pit lane there a few laps ago, and that I'm sure affected his ability to try and stretch the intermediate tires, but he will come home when he crosses the line in P13. But it is Puppet Master who won our race today. Congratulations. Beck had set the fastest lap earlier in the race, and then when the rain came, no one stood a chance of beating that 34.5 that he set. So no point for fastest lap today, as you have to be in the top 10 to receive that point and finish the race, I believe, which Beck did not, unfortunately. But it is Puppet Master who won the Chinese Grand Prix here in Zenith Online Racing EU tier. We'll take a look at the full results in just a minute, but as we expected, a tight battle from him and Miami, who finished in P2. It's a Renault double podium, though. That would be great for their constructors bid. So Puppet Master, despite that 3-second time penalty, did come home in first. Miami was able to stay in second. Just didn't have the race pace to match Puppet Master today. Almost got him in qualifying, but not quite in the race. Dylan in third, rounding out the Renault double podium. California did a great job coming from 8th to 4th as he picks up some solid points. JX moving from 9th to 5th. Good job from him as well. Jay Gray had that penalty, which just dropped him down, I believe, a position, and he'll be in 6th. RC, good job from him, persevering through some early struggles in this race to finish 7th. Adri in 8th, coming from 15th. So McLaren's coming from the back of the grid to finish 8th and 10th. Barton in 9th. Fuzz 10th. Bag of Bones 11th. Lit Romney 12th. Zamaglis 13th. And then the DNFs were Coxey, Jinnit, and Beck. So a very exciting race, kind of 3 phases to this one. 4 phases, actually. The rain really spicing things up, the safety car, and then a lot of drivers struggling at the hairpin today. So pretty entertaining race from start to finish. The rain, which has hit in ZOR at China before, the rain came again to to add another element to this race, and then also the need for the full wets was a bit of a surprise. We saw a few drivers able to hold on, but some really exciting racing so far in this Zenith Online Racing Season 4. We'll be back next week, back to the regular calendar for the Canadian Grand Prix. So we will see you all then. Thanks for tuning in, and make sure to tune in next week for the Canadian Grand Prix.